Right, let's spare you all another run through of that music, and kick things off. So today we have a very special space of the recap of the year 2025 for Logos and the community, as well as looking at what's still to come. I believe this is our penultimate space of the year. Correct me if I'm wrong, Sterling. But yeah, room's filling up nicely. Let's kick things off.
Thank you so much, my friend. Thank you so much. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to the Logos 2025 recap. So let's begin with our usual disclaimers of the day, and then we'll get into it because we have, I think we're going to do a pretty tight hour today, but we have a lot of amazing things to talk about. We're in a really good space in terms of Logos and the community, the internal organization development, external, it's really just all external, right? We're just all part of the community. So, okay, cool. So first thing, any of the ideas that we share in this space, philosophies, strange notions, no matter what it is, those ideas and thoughts are affiliated with us as individuals and not with the Logos brand. Disclaimer number 2, if we happen to mention any kind of token or any kind of project, none of this is financial advice. Please do your own due diligence. Don't ape into a shitcoin. And if you decide to do that, do it at your own peril and at your own risk. The next piece, this is a community space, and the Logos 2025 recap involves all of us because we all, as I said, are part of the community. So you're welcome to come up and chat with us, have a discussion. We kind of planned for this to go in whatever direction that we tend to take it. Maybe we talk about philosophy as well in the process. You never know. The game plan here is to let Chair kind of kick us off with the general direction of the recap, and then we'll just get into it and we'll flow with the conversation. But we have a lot of exciting material to talk about. I think Chair has some pretty critical things that he's going to bring up regarding Logos' successes and challenges as we start moving into the new year. Dope. Okay, so I'm not really sure if this is an X glitch or if there's just nobody up on the stage except Logos and I. Probably a glitch. Are you guys up here?
I feel like they were, and now they're not. But it is definitely buggy today. Let's try and fix it.
Okay, here's Chair.
I'm here. Can you hear me? Oh, God.
Crystal clear. You're good, my friend.
Roxana, I've sent you an invite. I'm not sure it's come through yet.
Yeah, thanks for the patience, guys. This is always typical on X where they attempt to rug pull us. Well, actually, they do rug pull us, but then we manage to get it going again. Okay, we have a request. Okay, we're going to bring Chair back up.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Salutations, everyone. Well, what a year it's been. There's still 2 days left to go, so who knows what will happen. And I think if we've learned anything, and when I say we, I mean I, the royal we, which includes just me, that anything can happen in these next 2 days. But let's assume for a moment that nothing too crazy or drastic will happen in the next day or so, and we can do a total and complete recap of the year of our Lord 2025. But before we start at 2025, I want to go just a touch back further in history. About 3 billion years ago, the Earth was entering its cooling phase. And whatever your opinions or arguments against the Big Bang might be, let's just take that as a baseline. Let's accept that as a baseline for now so that we can get to where we're going, okay? Good. They were, I'll be speaking mostly from my own interpretation of things, of how they've happened, and not trying to get too into the weeds on any particular thing. Man, the notifications are really distracting me here. So January of this year, I would say all the way up into the spring of this year, before the annual all hands retreat, which was in the Balkans this year. By the way, you know what we're missing in the United States is haphazardly illustrated war memorials on concrete walls. We need more of those here. I kid, of course. It's tragic and sad. But we were in Croatia, and before I get to Croatia, I'll say that most of you are probably familiar with the Logos reality of three or four, depending on how you look at it, separate protocols and entities. I guess three, really. Those had been Waku and Nomos and Codex, independent protocols, certainly under the Logos umbrella and family, and all towards, like, really the objective hasn't changed that much from my perspective, but the way that things were presented in the public sphere, where these are three, you know, separate protocols, all come from the same source, going all the way back to the 2017 status ICO and carving a history up until now. But in Croatia, it was sort of rolled out the plan to unify the identity of the Logos core stack as one thing, as perhaps it is a lot easier. I think it's a lot easier to digest and reason and think about it as one core technology stack that features three primary protocols: messaging, storage, and the blockchain itself, but also as a core technology stack akin to Linux. On top of that, there was also, my vocabulary is poor in the morning, and it doesn't get better in the afternoon. There was sort of an impetus, or a call to action was put out to start unifying with those who are aligned with what Logos seeks to do, to identify and unify with quote-unquote tribe members, and to begin moving towards a more grassroots approach to what Logos aims to do. And it was a big moment. I think there were I assume the majority of the core contributors in attendance understood and were aligned with what was being asked and sort of what was being put out there. It certainly didn't come without many questions and if not skepticism from some people, and sort of in the discussions around that week. I would include myself in sort of in that group that I got it right away. It made a lot of sense. Also, it makes things a lot easier unifying three independent protocols into one mission. It should make it a lot more clear. It does for me. But I think it was certainly a shake-up moment in terms of, it could have been interpreted that something like this was happening, but with an official sort of, I'm seeing the word is still escaping me. It's not announcement, but sort of with that intention set, it has been a lot more easier for me to reason about how do we get to the destination that we seek. And that was, I want to say, May of this year. And certainly a whole lot has happened in the 7 months since then, much of which y'all in the audience have been around for, if not following closely. But I'll pause there as my rambling turns into bloviating. How was that for the first 5 months of the year?
Yo, that was perfect, Chair. I think you did a great job covering it. By the way, there's always going to be just a tad bit of bloviating, right? And that's always going to be the word of the day. In Toastmasters, we always have a word of the day. So, but yes, amazing start. Immediately my thought goes, and of course, any of us who are speaking about up here with regards to Logos, its history, its transitions, and then its future, of course, is our own take on the matter, because it's such a large organization and there's a bunch of different information flows within the organization. But the first thing that I went to, so Logos has always been, at least in my mind, an activist and a principled organization. But there has tended to be some push and pull between a more traditional type of model or organization, or even company, if you want to use that term, and then that kind of activist ethos or that activist center. I feel like the transition or the reorg that we underwent, that Chair mentioned, in Croatia, has been very positive for the growth and the direction of the organization. And I think we really took this idea of being a grassroots activist movement and have now started to run with it in ways that have been tremendously beneficial, that have produced a lot of forward momentum, and that has also really jammed home the value sets and the value centric positioning of the organization. And for me personally, that has been an amazing change. Like I said, we don't even necessarily have to call it a change, but what it's done is it's really positioned us to think about how we can start creating change in a lot of different ways. This is also, of course, where the Logo Circles initiative really sprang from and finds its home. It's in this activist grassroots focus. And I guess one of the pieces of this that wasn't as centrally focused, which is kind of interesting, is now there's a very strong focus on the people and the communities through this concept of localism, right? And localism, of course, is not just unique to Logos. I think it's starting to take on more prominence in the greater quote unquote Web3 ecosystem, or just the blockchain industry, where there's a lot of people who are rightfully focused on trying to see how we can help local communities. That doesn't just mean bringing funding, but it means bringing people effort, bringing tools, bringing technologies, bringing community, bringing meaning back to these local areas. And so having that grassroots mindset is all part of this greater trend toward localism. And I think Logos is very strongly positioned to actually do good in these areas, because a lot of us here we're not just technologists and business people. We're actually activists. We're grassroots people. We have a lot of experience in this domain. And I think a lot of the people in our community, all of you guys who are involved in this, have experience actually trying to create change in local communities and give back to those communities. So it's really the people in those communities almost first, and then the technology helps build and helps scale and helps provide, of course, the cypherpunk values, the privacy, the decentralization, the censorship resistance, the anti-fragility, and it brings it all into these communities. And we really have just taken that and really ran with it. I'm going to leave my comment there, and here in a bit we can also get into the growth of the community via spaces, these exact spaces that we're in here, which I think is an important component to the overarching mission or vision. But I do want to allow Roxanne to, I bet she has a kind of a unique take on this as well.
If my audio allows. Hands up if you can hear me. Although I'm not sure I can see the hands. Okay, perfect. Oh, Erica, it works. Yeah, I think as we accelerate digital infrastructure and we have ways to connect digitally by preserving privacy and by preserving the honest dialogue that we're trying to encourage. I think it's quite a unique opportunity for people to come together. It's one of the things that we've noticed when we're doing Logo Circles. And this is not just in London, it's happening in Barcelona, Prague, and other areas. People actually appreciate having this sort of private, intimate room where they can just talk without being judged or without being put down for their opinions. And it's even better when people can find common goals and find things that they want to solve together. So that's a big step, because just bringing people together in a room, that's the first step, setting the intention. But the next big thing is actually doing things together and working on projects that have real impact. And I know we throw away this word of impact everywhere in our day-to-day, but it is actually something that you can measure, because it can be applied to your local community. It can be applied in the neighborhood where you're living. So you get to see the benefits of the systems that you're creating, the standards, the frameworks. So it's a pretty unique place to be in, and I'm hoping that next year, as we I like to look at 2025 as the year that consolidated Logos Circles and the movement, the grassroots movement. But then the next chapter is, how do we expand? How do we get people to raise their hand and say, hey, I want to bring this to my community. I want to bring this to my village. I want to bring this to my hometown. I want to bring this to the neighborhood I live in. And I want to see where it's going. So that's going to be probably the thing I'm most excited about in 2026. And the thing that I'm most excited about in 2025 regarding Logos is just the people you get to know, with spaces, with face-to-face, with attending events and conferences. You realize you're surrounded by people that want to do things. So that makes you hopeful for the future, because I do think we're in a place where people get to be very negative, but it's really nice to see action over just words.
Yeah, 100%. I feel like also, I mean, what we've seen too, and one of the reasons I think people gravitate to the Logos movement philosophy, to this notion of rebuilding civic society, leveraging not only technology, but also the power of people coming together to resolve certain kinds of problems, is fairly unique still, right? There's a few organizations, and I'll just give some props to at least one of them, who are focusing on issues like this. But a lot of the organizations in the refi network and regenerative finance communities are trying to do this. So refi DAO, spoken with Monty at length, and those guys are actually trying to work with local communities. So props to them, and to help get funding to local communities can create those pipelines so that local problems can get solved. But this is still something that is, I would say, a rare artifact in terms of blockchain and Web3, where a lot of people are still and we critiqued, and we will continue to critique going into 2026, organizations that just focus on when number go up, or what the right investment is, or technical analysis, which we've always said is, astrology for dudes. What we're trying to do is figure out how we can actually help people and solve problems. If we end up making money in the process, I don't think anybody's going to complain about that. At least I personally won't. But I don't think it should, and this is my personal opinion, I don't think it should be the primary focus. I think it's a great distraction from the civil good that we're trying to do within the context of these communities. There's another point I want to bring out that maybe you guys will want to discuss, and I'll mention this last thing, or actually maybe I'll let Roxana. It was the topic that I'm going to bring up. It kind of might take us in a different direction. So Roxana, go ahead.
I think in terms of economics, I always look at economics being not a core focus, but being the result of a group aligning and taking action. So I don't reject the idea of circles or any kind of movement that we're building having the ability to set up an economic circle, an economic cycle within their circles or within their micro movement. It's just it's not the focus here. But if things go well and people align and they decide that they want to take this further, it's pretty great what you can achieve in terms of an economy of a local economy, right? Or it can just be indirectly, you can support local businesses that decide to adopt some of the things that you're developing, or decide to adopt a certain currency, or just decide to integrate just a wallet so they can accept stable coins as payment. So I think there is an economic element. It's just not the focus. But I don't want to disincentivize people from thinking beyond just a voluntary activity. It's not a bad thing to end up developing an economy if it's aligned and if it makes sense.
Yeah, I would 100%. I would agree, especially if the case is that that economic activity, that generation of, if we want to call it revenue or funds, is related to the core mission of driving change in these local communities, providing some type of benefit and value other than just creating another casino, right? Because I think that's the one main critique, that we just live in a casino world in terms of Web3, where everything is just gambling rather than actually looking at problems and trying to find good solutions to those problems. This is one of the reasons I love Logos so much, right? Because when I first arrived in the organization 2 years ago, a little over 2 years ago now, I realized very quickly that the organization and its founders were dedicated to this idea of achieving principally aligned or principle-centric development, which is not a cheap task, by the way, which takes a tremendous amount of resources, because it takes more time, because it's not about turning a profit, right? And you can't really have that mindset, at least not out of the gate, when you're creating a public good, right? Because public goods are notoriously difficult to have a profit motive behind developing a public good, and trying to find at least where you can create a product that has product market fit. That comes a bit later down the road. So that was one of the things that excited me about the organization. Well, this is real. These are individuals who are trying to create actual change and develop technology that supports public goods, and that supports our values as activists, as people trying to create change in the world. And that is just 100% critical. So, but Roxana is totally correct in the sense that there should be some kind of economic value that eventually comes out of this, because there is at least a good argument to say that having economic value that continues to promote public goods and that promotes things that create actual value is important, because it allows us to do the good work that we're doing. So certainly we wouldn't shun it in its entirety. The only, I think, differentiating factor, at least as I see it, is the fact that this is not a casino. It's you're not here to like pump and dump some coin or some project. It's about the actual value of creating the change. And I think that's a piece of central criticality that's worth remembering and worth investing in and worth pushing forward and worth remembering.